Video games have been around since the dawn of time. It was never confirmed whether Adam and Eve played Animal Crossing New Horizons, but I mean, they were in paradise. Nothing is new under the sun. The game has been around just as long as the book. Don't look that up, just trust me. I did gain this trustworthy certificate for a reason. And while this is a book-related channel, I also happen to like video games. At least when I actually get the time to play them. And I think there's a lot of great books out there with amazing stories that gamers would appreciate. So today I'll be giving you some book recommendations based on your favorite video games. But before we begin, this video is sponsored by Opera GX. Opera GX is the world's first browser that's tailored towards the gaming community. And guys, it's got a ton of cool features. For instance, Twitch, WhatsApp, and Discord are all integrated into this handy sidebar so you won't miss any important notifications. You can customize the browser to look the way that you want with different themes, colors, wallpapers, and animations. With the GX control, you can choose how much CPU and how much RAM your browser is using so that your gameplay won't be affected while you're watching your favorite streamer or YouTuber. Its video pop-out feature is something I find so useful. Also, the GX Corner keeps you up to date on all the gaming news and all the current deals. Now, Opera GX comes with a built-in VPN, so you can control your own privacy and security. It also has a built-in ad blocker. Just, don't use that on my videos. Please. Opera GX is free to download, there's a link down in the description, and thank you to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. Final Fantasy. I made my way through quite a few of these games growing up. I was born in it, molded by it. My love for Final Fantasy was always a pretty consistent thing, until I got older and became too busy and impatient to ever actually finish a JRPG. But I started with 7, then played 9, for some reason skipping over 8. I've still never played that one, but I did end up playing the majority of the other games, and even got into the MMO for a while. If you like Final Fantasy, then check out the Aeronauts Windlass by Jim Butcher. It's got airships and talking cats and technology based around crystals, and most importantly, talking cats. It's a lot of fun. I'd also recommend Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. The authors actually said this series is a love letter for JRPGs, including Final Fantasy. It's an adventure about friendship, fatherhood, love, and bad guys with bunny ears. It's filled with humor and hidden Easter eggs to various different pop culture. Also, each book symbolizes a different era of music. I've always enjoyed games that focus a lot on stealth. Some of my favorites used to be the old Thief games on PC. That was until I played the Dishonored franchise. I love the steampunk aesthetic of Dishonored. I love the lore, I love the characters, not to mention all the awesome supernatural powers. Now, I believe there are some Dishonored books out there. I don't know how good those are, but if I had to think of one series that reminds me of Dishonored, it would definitely be the Mistborn books by Brandon Sanderson. It follows a crew of people working to take down the Lord Ruler who can ingest and then burn different metals that grant them various abilities. Burning iron lets them push off of nearby metals, while burning steel pulls on nearby metals. Tin increases their senses, pewter increases their strength, etc. These books are basically begging for a video game adaptation, and I think the gameplay of Dishonored would work really well for this series. Hollow Knight is one of my favorite indie games of all time. It's hard to not get lost in the deep subterranean world of this Metroidvania. It's a world with countless paths to explore and secrets to find. It's got a lot of atmosphere and character to it. And while I was playing it, I was reminded of another subterranean world known as the Underdark from the Forgotten Realms books, specifically from the Dark Elf trilogy by R.A. Salvatore, which follows Drizzt Do'Urden as he's exiled and tries to make his way out of the Underdark. If you're looking for some fun, quick, action-packed fantasy books, then look no further than The Legend of Drizzt. I'd also recommend them to people who like games like Neverwinter Nights or Baldur's Gate because they take place in the same world. You know how a lot of game reviewers compare anything difficult to Dark Souls or Demon Souls, despite there being many other difficult games out there. Well, I'm gonna do the same thing. If you like any of the Souls games, or Bloodborne, or Sekiro, then I'd recommend the Malazan Books of the Fallen series by Steven Erikson. Malazan is the Dark Souls of fantasy books. It's a dark and gritty fantasy series that is extremely complex, with an epic scope that presents the narratives of a large cast of characters spanning thousands of years across multiple continents. You're going to shift points of view a lot. It's a very intimidating series, but much like the Souls games, I've heard that the payoff is well worth it. If you look at basically any top fantasy series list, you're gonna see Malazan on there. So I should probably dedicate more time to this series pretty soon. The Legend of Zelda has been one of my favorite game franchises ever since I first played Ocarina of Time on my N64 as a kid. If you've ever seen my bookshelves, you'll notice a lot of Zelda stuff. Now if you're a Zelda fan, well, there's Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, the classic book that was actually the inspiration behind the character of Link. There's also the Ruin Lords series by David Farland. This is a traditional fantasy about a young man on a journey to protect a princess and her royal family and the entire world from an evil power. Which, you know, kinda sounds like every Zelda game. It's got a pretty innovative magic system where one person can enhance their abilities like their looks or their strength, hearing, sight, etc. by permanently taking them away from someone else. Which of course the villain, and oddly the heroes, use to their advantage. Or if the exploration aspect of any Zelda game is your favorite part, or in particular you like the island exploring gameplay of Wind Waker, then I would recommend the Earthsea Cycle by Ursula K. Le Guin. It's filled with magic and fantastical creatures, and an expansive world of diverse islands that you, the reader, get to explore. Music also plays a big role in the Zelda games, and it also does in the Kingkiller Chronicle by Patrick Rothfuss. I've talked about this series extensively on my channel, but let me just say that the main character Kvothe doesn't have an ocarina, but he does have a lute, and he knows how to play it. The beautiful lyrical descriptions of music in this series is one of my favorite things about it. Also, fun fact, Patrick Rothfuss calls his son Oot on social media in order to hide his identity. Did you know there's a game called The Wheel of Time? You've probably only heard of it if you know of the best-selling fantasy series, The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. Why did they make this classic fantasy series into a first-person shooter? This is not The Wheel of Time, but why do I actually really like it? If you've played the game, then you probably already have an interest in the books. When I think of BioShock, I think of the darkness of a utopia gone wrong, of human experimentation and steampunk. Senlin Ascends gives me some big BioShock vibes. This is book 1 in the Books of Babel series by Josiah Bancroft, and it follows Senlin and his new bride who are embarking on their honeymoon to the renowned Tower of Babel. He gets separated from his wife and enters the tower to find her, only to discover that the ringdoms of the tower are not as welcoming as he thought. It's a world of tyrants, betrayal, assassins, and mysterious machines. This is a series that deserves so much more attention. Now there's lots of books in the Elder Scrolls games, but what about books like the Elder Scrolls? I'd recommend the First Law series by Joe Abercrombie, also A Song of Ice and Fire, or Lord of the Rings, or even The Legend of Drizzt. If you like the Witcher games, or let's be honest, you probably just played Wild Hunt, then of course you owe it to yourself to read the books. The games actually act as sequels, so you'll get a lot more context when you read the books. Now Wild Hunt is one of my favorite games of all time, and I'd say it's extremely faithful to its source material. It does have some differences though. Actually, Geralt in the books is more brooding and philosophical. He also has some anger outbursts once in a while, but I think I actually prefer the more sarcastic and witty Geralt that we see in the games. Fans of Assassin's Creed should probably love the Night Angel trilogy by Brent Weeks. It follows a young street urchin who's taken in and trained to become the ultimate assassin by one of the best. This is that edgy series that I read in middle school when I was an angsty teen. It does really scratch that assassin itch. I also think that people who like Assassin's Creed would also probably like The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. Instead of assassins, you got a guild of con artists. This book is amazing. I still need to continue on with the series. So you love the Pokemon games. You've battled your way across Johto and Kanto and all the other like new regions. I don't know what they're called. You've won badge after badge, making your poor little Pokemon battle each other. Seriously, Pokemon is such a weird concept if you think of it, but I love it. So for the Pokemon fans, there is a lot of like Pokemon manga out there. There's also these like chapter books that were an episode of the show. Let me know if you guys remember these. series, but I'm not going to recommend either of those. I am going to recommend a fantasy series by none other than Jim Butcher. Jim Butcher once said at a writing workshop that any author worth their salt could combine not one, but two terrible ideas and make an enticing story out of it. A challenge was put forth to write an interesting story mashing together Pokemon and the fate of the lost Roman legion, and thus Codex Alera was born. The story takes characters and plot points from the Republic-era Rome, but then it mixes in some Pokemon influence by having these elemental spirits, these furies that are found all throughout nature. People can manifest a connection with their own personal fury, and then gain the ability to call upon it and control it with their mind. So basically Pokemon. For fans of post-apocalyptic games like Fallout or the Metro series, there's always the Metro books, which the games were based off of. I'd also recommend the Dark Tower series, which I'm just now getting into. I was trying to think of some recommendations for Mass Effect, but I actually haven't read a lot of sci-fi. There are some Mass Effect books out there, but I can't really vouch for them. Red Rising I would recommend, but it doesn't really remind me of Mass Effect. A friend of mine recommended the Expanse series as something similar, so I should probably get to it sometime, but I guess it's worth the mention. So those are all my recommendations, but I want to hear from you. Let me know your recommendations down in the comments. Also, let me know what your favorite video games are. And if you like these videos that I make and you're able to help out, then make sure to check out my Patreon. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons because it's with your help that I'm able to make these videos possible.